the way the U.S. government does business with defense primes. That's probably the really key important part, because you remember, we've talked about this before on the show, the way the U.S. government works with defense primes right now is based on what are called cost plus contracts, right? And an easy way, in case viewers are just tuning into this to understand it, is, let's say, take for example, an icon of American power, the F-35, great aircraft, right? But as a project, as a business, as a product, grossly over time, over budget, very, very inefficient. And that's because of cost plus contracts, right? So let's say the F-35, which you're looking at there, costs $100 to build, right? As they're going about it, Lockheed Martin comes back and says, I don't know, we're having a hard time figuring out how to make let's say, the wings, right? We need more time. Time is money, right? They get paid for that. And on the back of that, they also get paid a bonus incentive at the end of it. So, the whole way it's set up is incentivizes these defense contracts to drag out product development and rollout because they get paid for it. And on top of that, they get paid a profit too. So, a lot of people think this is hugely and grossly inefficient. And this is, by the way, using U.S. taxpayer money.
Exactly. So I think it's a little different from the Intel story that we spent some time talking about over the last couple of weeks or so, because when it comes to Intel and potential similar moves with some of the other chip makers, is really the money that was already promised under the Biden administration under the CHIPS Act. But this is very different, and obviously a very different sector. And as you laid out, the way of doing business between the government and a defense contractor, grossly different as well. And perhaps to your point, that sovereign premium, if I may call it that, could be actually coming off if it actually materializes with the government sort of driving some of the business decisions as a stakeholder, and perhaps, sort of trying to come down on the cost. I don't know if that's really the rationale behind all this, but yet another trial balloon floated by, well, this time Secretary Lutnick. I wonder, so we've got Intel and defense contractors. There is monstrous discussions about that. What's next? I mean, the U.S. government is definitely running like a business, perhaps, and really this could be reflecting this transactional deal maker nature of President Trump as well.
I think the key difference, Chery, between the U.S. government taking a stake in Intel is, look, Intel's not going to say no to the money, of course, right? They'd be silly to do so. What folks are hoping, though, is that the government is only putting money into Intel and then leaves its hands off to let Intel run the business as it thinks best, right? They want less actual intervention from the government. In this case, though, with the defense primes, I think a lot of folks would want to see more intervention by the U.S. government, or certainly more oversight, right? And I think the key thing to watch is whether or not they change up that cost-plus business model. It's really got to go, and it's where, newer companies like Palantir, which was a startup, of course, and this was started by Peter Thiel, who's actually very close to the president, right? It's not a startup anymore. It's hugely successful, right? This is a situation where I think names like Palantir actually have a leg up because they're doing things the right way and efficiently and helping the government while they're at it.
Yeah, so I think in the bigger picture, I think the easy criticism of all this is we need that healthy distance between the government and the companies that it is supposed to be regulating. But just one point that I want to make, that it has been done before. Times are different because the examples of what? Governments financing airlines, for example, during COVID, or these financial institutions during financial crisis back in 2008. It's been done before. Obviously, we're talking about the sort of a wartime kind of economic stress that led to those decisions in previous cases. Perhaps, I don't know, the Trump administration sees this as the time to get really serious about preemptively making sure that they have their national strategically important sectors in order, and maybe that's kind of, that's the type of thinking that is driving these trial balloons. But we'll see, and we'll continue.
I would agree with you.
Talking.
I think a lot of the national security guys in the Trump administration actually do see the situation right now as a crisis, especially with regards to the defense industry.
Exactly.
So, yeah.